Celtics fans, buckle up, because what we saw on the court felt like a full-season highlight reel and a stress test packed into the same night. Boston stepped into this matchup needing answers, needing consistency, and needing that trademark edge that usually shows up when the energy in the building starts to shift. For a while, it looked like everything was lining up perfectly. The ball was moving, the defense was locked in, players were flying around the floor with that controlled chaos that makes this team almost impossible to guard when they're locked in. In that explosive second quarter, it felt like the Celtics had rediscovered that identity. They were jumping passing lanes, turning defense into easy points, and converting every mistake on the other end like a team that knew exactly how to pounce when the momentum tipped their way. Every steal felt like a spark. Every transition bucket sounded like a statement. Boston didn't even need a massive number of takeaways to tilt the game because they were cashing in on everything. That rhythm, that flow, that swagger, it pushed the lead to more than 20 points, and it felt like the game was on the verge of being completely torn open. Dropping nearly 50 points in a single quarter is something you almost never see, even with today's pace and spacing. Hitting 80 in one half is even rarer, something only a handful of Celtics teams in the entire history of the franchise have ever done. That's how unstoppable the offense looked. It was the version of Boston that people imagine when they talk about championship ceilings, the version that overpowers with pressure on both sides of the ball, the version that forces opponents into rush decisions and then punishes them for those mistakes immediately. But as soon as halftime passed and things settled, you could feel that familiar shift starting to happen. The energy dipped. The rotations changed. And suddenly Orlando, missing key guys and relying on young players, started hitting everything in sight. The third quarter was the alarm bell. Shots that Boston had forced misses on earlier were suddenly falling. Players who normally don't get heavy minutes were stepping in with confidence, rhythm, and absolutely no hesitation. The defense that had looked sharp and connected earlier was suddenly late to closeouts, slow to rotate, and leaving just enough space for Orlando to heat up. And once they heated up, they never cooled off. It felt like every time the Celtics tried to punch back, someone from Orlando found a way to respond. The lead that once sat at more than 20 slipped into the teens, then into single digits, and before you knew it, the pressure was right back on Boston. The fourth quarter turned into one of those stretches where the Celtics have to confront their own habits, the ones that keep showing up in games where the lead evaporates faster than it should. The ball stopped moving the same way. The pace slowed. Defensive communication wavered. And that sense of control that Boston had built so easily in the first half just wasn't there anymore. You could see guys drifting from the game plan, hunting shots, looking for their own rhythm instead of sticking to the structure that built the lead in the first place. That happens sometimes when a game feels like it's already been decided, but in the NBA nothing is ever really decided until the final buzzer hits, and Orlando reminded them of that. Even with the defensive lapses, the fouling issues, and the inability to shut off Orlando's late burst from deep, one thing kept Boston from collapsing completely: Jaylen Brown. The fourth quarter belonged to him, and he delivered exactly what a star is supposed to deliver when everything around him starts to get shaky. He attacked, he absorbed contact, he found open teammates, he bullied his way into mid-range space, and he refused to let the energy of the game tilt too far in the wrong direction. His scoring wasn't just about stacking points. It was about stabilizing the entire team. Every bucket he hit stopped a run, calmed the pace, or reset the flow. This season, night after night, he's been putting together performances that show why he's playing at an all-league level. When the Celtics wobble, he's the one keeping them upright. At the same time, there were bright spots around him from guys embracing their roles and staying aggressive. Anthony Simons came in with that microwave energy that can flip a whole quarter. One made shot for him can turn into a series of possessions where suddenly everything he puts up looks clean. Minot adding that burst in the second quarter around the rim, finding spots in the dunker area, timing cuts perfectly, added a layer the Celtics needed. These are the types of contributions that can change the rhythm of a game instantly, especially on nights where the bench becomes a bigger part of the story. But then there's the flip side of that, the challenge that comes with players fighting for minutes, trying to carve out their place in the rotation. When the lead grows, when the pace loosens, That is often when guys feel the temptation to play outside the system, to prove what they can do individually, to chase a rhythm or pad a stat line to show the coaching staff that they belong. That's where the discipline needs to be strongest. That's where the game plan must stay intact. Because the Celtics can't afford stretches where focus fades, especially when their margin for error has proved to be razor thin. When they play with precision, they look elite. When they drift away from that structure, the entire identity of the team feels shaky. All of this unfolded while the coaching staff was juggling lineups as unexpected moments forced adjustments. Kata, leaving with an ankle issue, changed the rotation immediately, and instead of going to a traditional big, the staff leaned into smaller, more flexible looks. It created some chaotic sequences on defense, but it also opened up the floor in ways that helped the offense for stretches. At the same time, some substitutions left more questions than answers, especially with matchups that weren't favorable and defensive assignments that didn't hold up against Orlando's quickness and confidence. And through all of this, you could feel the frustration building on the bench and on the floor. Guys knew they let the game get far closer than it needed to be. They knew the door should have been shut much earlier. They knew that the mistakes were preventable and that the breakdowns weren't about scheme, but concentration and rhythm and sticking to the plan that had worked so well earlier. And as we shift into the second phase of this conversation, Yankees fans, things get even more intriguing because everything that has been unfolding behind closed doors in the Bronx paints a picture that's far more layered than what the headlines try to summarize. The truth is, when a franchise like the New York Yankees enters an offseason full of pressure, expectations, and the shadow of a championship drought that has lasted longer than anyone in this city is comfortable with, every decision becomes magnified. Every meeting in the front office, every negotiation with a player, every sign of hesitation or aggression turns into a clue about the direction this team is trying to take. And let's be honest, nothing ever stays quiet for long in New York. The moment something shifts, whether it's a rumor, a leaked conversation, or even a small hint of dissatisfaction, fans feel it immediately. It spreads across social media, sports radio explodes, and suddenly the entire baseball world is watching the Yankees like a hawk. What's fascinating now is how much internal tension this offseason has exposed. Not necessarily in a dramatic or chaotic way, but in that very specific Yankees way, where the desire to win collides with the pressure of living up to decades of legacy. This isn't a small market team trying to overachieve. This is the New York Yankees, the franchise that built its identity on dominance, intimidation, and a level of expectation that very few organizations in sports can relate to. Anytime they fall short, it becomes a national conversation. And this past season left the entire fan base with the same question stuck in their minds. How does a team with this much talent, this much investment, and this much potential fall so short of its own standards? That question is exactly what shaped the front office's mindset as soon as the offseason began. From the very first internal evaluations, the message was clear. Things needed to change, and not just in a superficial way. This wasn't about plugging one or two holes. It wasn't about hoping that injuries magically disappear or that slumps resolve on their own. It was about redefining the foundation of the roster so that the Yankees could stop reacting to problems and start dictating the pace again. And that's what makes this moment so compelling. Because while fans were arguing online about which superstar the Yankees should pursue or which player should be traded, the real decisions were being weighed behind the scenes. Decisions that could reshape the next 5 to 7 years of this franchise. One of the most interesting elements of this whole situation is the balance between urgency and patience. On one hand, the Yankees cannot afford another year of disappointment. Another season of inconsistency, injuries, and underperformance would ignite a firestorm unlike anything this organization has seen in the modern era. But on the other hand, making moves out of desperation is exactly how a team ends up trapped in long-term contracts that eventually become anchors. And the Yankees know that they can't fall into that trap again. The front office understands that the next big investment has to be perfect financially, strategically, and in terms of fit. They're not just trying to add talent. They're trying to build an identity that can finally carry them deep into October again. And that's where some of the surprising internal shifts come into play. Coaches evaluating roles, analytics teams reviewing trends that were ignored or underestimated earlier in the year, scouts pushing for younger talent that hasn't been given enough runway, and veterans in the clubhouse making it clear that they're tired of feeling like the team is one step behind its competition. These voices, these internal conversations, they're shaping the Yankees in ways fans don't always get to see. Because while the trade rumors and free agency predictions dominate social media, the actual roadmap is being redrawn by the people who understand exactly where the cracks formed during the season. But perhaps the most compelling storyline right now is the emotional connection the fans have maintained even through frustration. Yankees fans may argue, may criticize, may explode in comment sections every time the team underperforms, but there's one thing they never do: disappear. And that constant pressure is part of what fuels this organization. Players feel it. Coaches feel it. The front office definitely feels it. And as we move deeper into this offseason, that energy is only intensifying. Fans are demanding a team worthy of the pinstripes, and that demand is pushing the Yankees toward decisions that they can't afford to get wrong. Even players currently on the roster are feeling the shift. Some know their future in New York is uncertain. Others know that they're being counted on more than ever. The younger players sense that their moment might finally be approaching, while certain veterans understand that they need to deliver at a level that just hasn't been consistent enough. That combination of urgency and opportunity has created an atmosphere that is tense but electric. It's the kind of environment where one bold move could reshape the narrative instantly, where one major signing or unexpected trade could reignite the belief that the Yankees are ready to reclaim their place as contenders. And that's why this second half of the story is so intense. Because everything, every call, every evaluation, every strategic choice is building toward a turning point. The Yankees are not simply reacting to last season. They're trying to position themselves for the next era. And whether that era begins with a blockbuster acquisition, a dramatic roster shakeup, or a more calculated reinvention, one thing is certain: the Bronx is bracing for impact. The next steps the Yankees take will define how they enter the season, how they compete, and how they fight to break the cycle that has frustrated this fan base for far too long. And as always, the fans will be right there, watching every move, demanding excellence, and waiting for the moment when this team finally looks like the Yankees again. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. The basketball world is buzzing with whispers that have shaken the East Coast to its core. According to insiders who prefer to stay unnamed, one of the Brooklyn Nets' towering figures, once considered untouchable, might be making a shocking leap to the Boston Celtics. Sources suggest that talks are underway behind closed doors, and the rumor mill is spinning faster than a fast break down the hardwood. Fans across both cities are already holding their breath, speculating about how such a seismic shift could alter the balance of power in the Eastern Conference. The player in question has long been a cornerstone of the Nets' frontcourt, admired for his versatility, rebounding prowess, and ability to change the game on both ends. Yet, whispers of dissatisfaction, locker room tension, and ambition for a championship run have fueled speculation that his loyalty might be more flexible than previously believed. Celtics faithful, notorious for their heightened expectations and voracious appetite for stars, would surely welcome such an addition with open arms. But the city's basketball purists are bracing for waves of controversy. Social media has erupted with a mix of shock, excitement, and disbelief. Memes and hot takes abound, and hashtags are trending before any official confirmation has been uttered. Analysts are already dissecting what this move could mean strategically. The Nets losing a defensive anchor and offensive spark, while the Celtics could gain a formidable presence capable of reshaping lineups and schemes. While front offices remain tight-lipped, whispers suggest negotiations have been intense, possibly involving multiple teams and high-stakes trade considerations. If the rumors are true, this would not just be a player switching jerseys. It would symbolize a shift in the Eastern basketball hierarchy, a dramatic shakeup that could redefine rivalries and playoff narratives. The thought of a Nets star suddenly donning the green and white has sparked fierce debate, heated arguments, and even some loyal fans questioning allegiances. For now, it's all speculation. But in a league where a single trade can rewrite history, the mere possibility of this jump has sent tremors from Brooklyn to Boston. The basketball world is watching, waiting, and whispering, because if this rumor materializes, it won't just be a trade. It will be a betrayal that echoes along the entire East Coast. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.